Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. First of all, we'll have the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag. United States of America. To the republic. Stands one nation under. Indivisible. Liberty and justice. First thing we'll do is a roll call. Their name. Present. Vice Chair Epple. Here. Commissioner Bees. Present. Commissioner Carlson. Present. Commissioner Jorgensen. Here. Commissioner Farrell.
Here.
Commissioner Lewis is the president. I'm not sure what's going on there. Mayor Phelan. Present. City Planner Cindy Nash.
Present.
Deputy Clerk Natalie Johnson.
Here.
Scott Mayor, City Administrator. Roll call is taken. Thank you. The first thing we're going to do is approve or amend the next meeting minutes. Agenda ready. We have a motion to approve the next agenda. Make a motion to the agenda as stated. I'll second. Commissioner Hepple made the motion, the second by Commissioner Bees. The next thing we'll do is approve or amend the meeting minutes from June 20. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Way ahead. The next thing is approve the amend the meetings from June 25th, 2024 regular meeting. We need a motion for that.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from the June 25th meeting.
I'll make the second.
Commissioner Bees made the motion. Commissioner Pearl made the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Vote on. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. The next thing we're gonna do is we'll be opening our public hearing and at this time we'll ask our
We don't have any public hearings.
there's no public hearing.
No.
Okay. Stay down there. You got old business on there. Is there anything old business? Okay, the new business will be the Peterson Acres final plat. And this time we'll ask our planner if there's something she has them.
Thank you. The plat is on your screen. The major change in the plat from when you would have seen it as a preliminary plat is that they are showing the Kettler property, which is this about 1 acre residential home in the corner, as part of what was Outlet A. Because if you recall, they were going to be purchasing Outlet A from them so that they could add to their property. This will combine it all into one lot. So it's consistent with what we had assumed for the preliminary plat and the conditions, but I just wanted to call that to your attention. So that's the major change here. And that's just making sure that we
mismatch, is that what it's under item 1 for the land use for the 2 homes now?
yes, that's one of the homes. Yes.
I was questioning that.
Yes, because they already had the home there. And then of course, there's the home existing on what's now numbered lot 7 on the eastern side. So that isn't a major, well, it's not a major change, but it's just, you know, one of our conditions was that they needed to design that property or get rid of all.
Okay, so the Kettlers are combining their portion with that to make it their lot.
Correct. So you'll see, if you look at the signing details on the final plat, it references their property as well, and they also have to sign the final plat. Yeah, so then as part of a development agreement, the Kettlers will also have to sign, but they'll be signing as more of a landowner without any responsibilities to do anything. But because they have to sign the final plat, they also have to be part of that. It's kind of as an ancillary, if you will. So otherwise, it's generally consistent with what was in the preliminary plat conditions, and We do still have a few outstanding items on this plat. We are waiting for soil borings in the vicinity of the roadway. There is, shows up better on this drawing, but right here in orange, there's a little bit of impact to the wetlands. So they do need to do a wetland application for mitigation of those impacts. And then we are also waiting on a signed stormwater management plan. As well, all of those items show up in the city engineer's comment letter. So we are recommending approval at this time. Even though we're waiting on those things, we think it will end up being all right. But at the same time, we're hesitant to put it on a city council agenda until we have that information in hand.
Is the applicant here, Mr. Peterson here? No. Okay. I'm gonna ask, if all the legal publications, mailings, posting, can they complete?
There's no mailings for the final plan.
Okay, okay. And we got any questions we'd like to ask our planning mayor?
Here. And so on. Final plats have provided, we provided drainage utilities and comes to JCP. That's part of the engineer requirement.
It is part of the engineer requirement. I'm not sure which one that is. But they'll have to just make that change.
So who verifies?
Um,
Shane look at the Mylar?
Yeah, we-
Company before.
Yeah, we'll see a paper copy of it before it's printed as a Mylar with those revisions to it. So we'll verify that.
If somebody goes back and looks at this.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
question. One of the things we had talked about was requiring pavement fast development, including the spots on the driveway. Is that something that's, I didn't see that in the picture of the. I guess some of the requirements, is that something that is going to be done? Is that not part of the plat?
So that is something that we talked about at one point with the planning commission, but it's also something that was discussed at that time that the city attorney and I could not find a legal basis to require them to do
Okay.
as part of their development.
And
So it wasn't included as part of the preliminary plat.
And we also talked about getting verification from the county that they would not allow coming off the county road versus 205th. I know there is we call it per definition of per, but where they have developments and the county does have a entrance there. Is that something that was looked at any further? Did the county come back written saying no?
It is, we did reach out to the county, they
Okay.
came back and said no.
Okay,
I thought that I had brought that back during preliminary.
and you might have, I missed it, so.
Oh, might have been that. Being
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner. Heckle.
Did the road move it off from
I can pull it up and see. Mr. Chair,
Another question I had in regard to some recommendations is the park and trail dedication. I guess the calculation of it. So they're saying a potential trail is shown on the comprehensive plan. I'm just trying to figure out where that is being shown and what part of this is the comprehensive. Plan. Where is it?
give me a minute to pull that up too.
Okay, so I couldn't find it on anything and I didn't know where I was moving to find it.
So to answer, Commissioner Poplar's question, this is the plans as they were from preliminary plat. And that seems like the road is in pretty much. Sorry, it's really hard to get it on the screen together here. They seem.
Just throw in a number there. And figure it out. You probably see it better if you zoom in and look at it, so.
Yeah, it's. A little bit this, the projector's causing it to me. No, I'm not even able to make it smaller.
You're just wondering if the road is moved at all? Road road? Or the development road?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I'm looking at that. Open about things. Big things. Mr. Chair, just a question for the administrator regarding the road maintenance. Are we anticipating additional maintenance required with the additional traffic? I know it's a road that is in not rough shape, but it's,
Oh, 250 is always in our queue
yeah,
to be able to keep an eye on, and if it's going to call for additional maintenance, it would be no different than what we do today. I can say that we are looking at some of the roads, and some of the higher travel roads, and we're trying to do a little bit more with, following gravel and using the types of gravel, making sure we keep it on in the road.
right.
So the water runs off and all that, so that would definitely be on the road that we're looking at to make sure to be there. But we don't have anything special assigned to it because of Mr. Bill.
See what happens here.
Roll the dice.
It looked just fine before I plugged it back in.
Okay. Oh, hold on. It's fixing itself.
No, it's a,
Well, it was zooming in and out on
yeah,
it. It says take a minute. The little timer is up.
yeah, for some reason, when I have it plugged in, it's, PDF is not responding, see that, well, it's right there. But basically, it's showing it on 200. For the proposed. Check.
So the comprehensive plan shows the trail, the sidewalk, whatever, along 200 and a bit.
Yep.
The whole way?
Just through the development.
Well,
This is your comprehensive plan?
yeah,
Yeah. Look at that.
the whole way.
You can't go all the way to the end.
Well, it's just a big dirt road. Why would you have a trail, walking trail on it right now? I mean,
Yeah, see, it's a potential trail corridor and
okay. So that's what the is noting is that there is a potential trail in the future, but that has nothing to do with these specific.
no, that's so they do have to provide the consent. So that when they record, they'll have to provide an easement for about 200 people. Makes some sense. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
you can find an app, I know it's the engineering section, but when the site access, the vehicular track, before it. It says there is a yield sign. In the back. Number 4 is page 3 of the engineering.
Let's see a dead end sign.
Street sign, but necessary street sign, 105th Avenue, northwest on Packer Street, when it goes.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Have been installed, to protect the new road, 205th. And the yields, and there's something installed.
I'm not sure why he recommended that. I can certainly talk to
I
him.
mean, that's like something to figure out.
If the wet order means it's you. Oops.
It's through the sightlines.
I think so too, because there's quite one.
That's why I hope it just seems strange, I've never seen
Sure.
T like that.
Mhm.
You
Have a yield, right?
know, that's.
Maybe.
That's usually inconsistent, yes.
I can double check with the city engineer on that. Thank you.
I perceive someone using that as a yield and just race straight through the T. Oh, well, that's happening.
Are there any more questions? The planning and zoning. They ask you about it. And is anybody here that represents the, Mr. Peterson? Good.
May I ask a question?
Do you have a question about this?
Somewhere you hang out on Tuesday night. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it open to the public to ask questions here?
Well, we'll make it, nothing, open. It's on it.
Yeah, Tom Sonnenstall, 7933 205th, I live adjacent across the street. The couple of questions again, you said that the engineers are looking into the water. What exactly is that? Are they talking with Corps of Engineers, EPA? I know the soil and water, are they just going with their east and west directionals from the first report?
So, no, they don't reach out to those other agencies. So the city engineer has been reviewing the stormwater reports that have been provided by them. There's been some different iterations and changes that have gone back and forth regarding the modeling. And his comment that they're waiting on the final signed report from the engineer. So their engineer is required to actually sign that they're approving that document, and we just haven't received that yet.
Who's putting out the document?
The developer's engineer, Bogart Peterson.
Okay, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was two engineers that looked at this property. And both of them have a watershed showing opposite directions.
So the city engineer had some questions about how they were modeling some certain aspects of it. And that's what they've been going back and forth on, including that city engineer was questioning some of the potential flow directions that were being shown.
Okay, but there was, I mean, that's a very contrasting, two engineers,
They,
east and west, and the water does not go that. So I don't understand how they're gonna say one's right and one's right. I don't-
that's specific, yeah, that's specifically related to a culvert that is under the county road somewhere in this vicinity. So that part does go east and west.
Yeah.
Right through that area.
Okay, but then you'd have to make that a drainage ditch along, and that house is on the corner. On the northeast corner, northwest corner. That's not a drainage ditch, that's.
There is a culvert though in here, and that's specifically one of the items that was being discussed, that was an east-west. Is it flowing this way or is it flowing that way?
And to the east. Is there any culvert? It's the driveway basically all the way down, then there's a culvert on the driveway at the very northeast corner of the plat.
right, in the
Which
ditch,
is
yeah.
not just a basic overflow, that's not a water flow, because there's nowhere for it to go farther east. From there. It just pools in that yard.
So like I said, the city engineer has reviewed the drainage modeling. We're just waiting on that final report, yeah, to come out with the signature from their engineer.
Okay, so the water has been draining out to the drain tile this year, obviously, with the heavy rains that we've had, significant, top three, I think, in how many years of most rainfall. That water's been running nonstop north through the drain that the two drain tiles in that field go to. And it's been flowing all along. In the future, if once the development takes place and there's excavating and so forth, those drain tiles will be removed or damaged or altered, so the water flow going to that north direction through that culvert 205th. What is proposed with that? That's kind of a big question, I think. Otherwise, that field is basically a swamp. Because no water will drain out of there. It'll sit.
you'll have wetlands that rise up. And the history has shown that that field has had standing water prior to those drain towns put in. So there's no drainage to the north where it's going now appropriately because it was farmed and it was drained out. You're gonna have flooding somewhere because those tiles aren't there to properly drain that water to the northeast out across 105th and up to Goose Lake.
So there's a couple of stormwater ponds that
Yeah.
are being constructed that the water is being directed to for both treatment and retention. And then under certain conditions, it would flow out.
To
I believe the north, but
Mr. Chairman. In the engineer's report, again on page 3 of stormwater. First item is generally stormwater from new impervious surface associated with this project. Proposed to be managed with 2 new wet sedimentation basins. Additionally, off-site stormwater that naturally drains and overflows to this site. Is proposed to be managed with an expanded ditch storage along County Highway 5. And expanded storage within Outlaw 8 charge district. So if I read that, they're saying it's going into storage on the outlot and going to 5. The idea being it's going to go west and the coast.
and if it doesn't, because that would flood the natural flow would be north.
So you're saying the flow goes under 205th and on the east side of your property?
Yeah, but the follow through my property on the east end,
Okay,
going
yeah.
straight north, and it's around
Right.
Stanky's property, and then it eventually dumps into Goose Lake. And it's since 1938, it's been, I've got good pictures of it, satellite images of that drainage. So if that is not a procured flow system from that field, there will be overflow problems in that field. The storm ponds, I get that. But you have a silt line of what, 12 inches through overall as median for that field, which means water sits about a foot below the surface on average that field, correct?
that, I'm sorry, that I don't know.
Okay, well, that's the understanding I have from the individuals that were doing the bore sampling out there. To determine how far down is. That's from Michigan. So. If that's true, right now, without drainage out of that hole going north, that field would be underwater. So those 2 ponds that would be. Could hold water up to a foot. That water would overflow, especially this year. It's just a huge water issue in that area. You can, you can talk to Benny Amler, the owner of that property. Some years. Could definitely tell you the problems that fields have with water flowage.
Oh.
And
Question, is the gray arrows, is that where that culvert is
it,
on the road? You would know that.
it's approximately where that would be, right?
Is that where it is?
That's a 2-tiered culvert, there's 2 stacked on top of each other, and that culvert has been flowing steady the whole year. And that whole drainage going to the north, that creek is full of water, that's been on here. Last year, it drained down, it was very shallow because it was dry year. This year, we've had substantial rain, that water, you would think naturally, if it would seep out or reduced out of that field, somehow it would go into Bass Lake, which is in the southeast corner, but it doesn't. So it drains to the north. I just find it very peculiar that you have 2 engineers that reviewed this plat. One of them says it's going, the water drainage issue will be resolved going to the west, which if it does, it could go to the west, it could go to that culvert, but theoretically it would end up going north. And not south toward Nowthen, but if it did come south to Nowthen, where would it go?
So go up to the culvert in the road approach there. Now the square basin actually is a few feet shallower than the area going to that culvert from the road. And so for however reason that they've made it, it looks like it's kind of a small berm that is going to feed into that square basin is going to feed into and feed to that culvert. That's what it looks like it's supposed to do.
Is that the
green.
map?
That's what the green line shows.
Yeah.
Okay, so then going north and east out of that square ton, there's a green line too. What is that?
They're agreed.
That's the green line. So
Is that drainage?
yes, that's square looking
But
basin.
that's drainage into that basin?
No, yep, no,
Out
that's
of the
out.
base.
That would be drainage out.
Okay, where does that go to? It just sounds right there. In the field.
It goes right into the field and then drains towards us.
Okay,
Because of the way the grading shows the grading lines, if you look at all the numbers, how it goes up and down, you can see the mounds in that whole area. You know, it's
Sure.
really hard to see.
I can see what but when it drains out there and it sits, how does it get to the culvert? Does it just seepage through the ground and then what? Right now, that culvert is drain tile that's feeding to it,
Yeah.
right? So if you just have
It
a
looks like a
dirt,
grading thing.
but if it's just dirt or mud, that would. My guess would be that would clog or that would be, unless there's some natural.
So this is a
vessel
wetland
that
right
transfer
here.
off.
Yeah, that's a wetland right there. So they're not impacting the wetland.
I
So
understand.
it should still be able to flow north, right?
I understand if it does, but what's right now there's drain tile going up to that culvert. That's
So,
a tube, right? So there's nothing to obstruct the water that seeps down and goes to the tube and then it flows north. But if there's no drain tile there, it's just gonna sit in that corner of it, pool up and then eventually flow through and then all of that be prevented from plugging or clogging or throwing sediment down that creek bed, because that would be another concern. Is there gonna be sediment from this development now flowing down that creek bed, which would mean that creek bed would fill in. And I have dredged, or I haven't, but the farmers who lease that property have dredged that creek because the tractors, as they went along both the east and west side going north and south, and they pushed the embankment in and it caused sediment to collapse into the creek. And that sediment then sits there and it builds up, well, that raises the water, which eventually floods the northeast section of my property. So my concern is, I really don't want to have to dredge that creek out every year because of sediment coming from this development. And if there is flooding or stoppage of water, because it is a natural flowing. And what is the recourse as a landowner? So I'm the one directly affected by it. No one else would be affected by that water coming out of there but mine, because it's on my property. So what is the recourse that I would take? Because once this is platted, approved and passed, the Peterson owner is done with it. It's just the landowners that have the responsibility, right? It's the city of Nowthen. I just wanted to make the city of Nowthen aware. That is my concern, so that down the road, when and if it does happen, that the city of Nowthen should be. What would they do? It is part of the city. I'm addressing it right now, and the first two engineers said the water's going east and west.
so would it help if I asked the city engineer to, excuse me, maybe give you a call? And then you
No.
guys can discuss these issues?
I'm not a water expert.
I'm
But
not either.
the Army Corps of Engineers does that, the Anoka County Soil and Water does that, the Minnesota EPA does that. And the engineer should be correlating with them to find out exactly how that water is gonna flow from this development. Now, in 10 years, in 15 years, what is gonna happen with these stock? I get the ponds and I get the overflow, but once they fill up and once sediment starts coming out and going across that road. Through those drains, and those pipes blew about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little longer. There was an actual rupture right in the middle of the road because the pipe rusted out or whatever, and water came right up. It blew a hole right through the middle of the road. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I guess I'd like to ask the mayor, that is a good question. What is our responsibility if there is impact to that property after the development? Then you approve it.
Well, again, so I'm looking at the engineering report, page 3 again. Says a complete final stormwater management plan shall be submitted. Final stormwater management plan shall be certified by a professional engineer. That prepared back on the initial sheet. It said that finding is located in lots that have drainage and utilities, and told them the stormwater maintenance agreement will be required. So somebody is going to be certifying this, and somebody's going to be responsible for it. And the maintenance agreement I have no idea, because I don't, never seen that agreement. I know we have drainage and utilities into the city to allow us to go in and maintain things. If there's a blockage, so no one goes in and blocks the drainage, and then somebody wanted to build a pond for the hunting dogs. So they blocked the drainage and flooded everybody upstream.
Yeah.
So we had to be able to have an easement to go in there and clear that out. I don't know what this says. It's not yet part of the thing. Typically on private property, we don't. This is why we're trying to get this resolved now.
Right.
So that somebody's building on this, they're not adding to either one of the new lots in that development, in this case, Sunsel's.
Yeah.
Property to the north. Anyway, looking at the one where they're saying we're gonna put on the outlet. It looks like it's gonna go towards the overflow on the ditch and pond.
So if it doesn't work as planned. What action do we take as the city?
That depends on the stormwater management plan certified by the engineer and the maintenance agreement. Because right now, generally, the lawyer's gonna get involved in it, and indemnify the city. But Mr. Santos' point is once Mr. Peterson out of the picture, you're gonna go to that homeowner on the lot corner and say, the water going into my fields. I have seen, I was there when I dug up, found that there's a stacked culvert underneath 200 feet. And when we cleared out the drain tile, it's quite a flow coming out of it. And here, because the drain tile is plugged up, we didn't get in.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I don't think I'd buy it. They're just.
That's my, I mean, that is my concern, because you've got 5 people that are looking at buying properties who have no clue that they could be just on swamp. They could have a yard full of water any summer of the year. And then if that water does flow north and it does bring sediment and stuff and clogs up that creek going to the north, then there's almost problems. And it would be very wise, in my opinion, to address that way before this is approved, not trying to block this being done. It's just water is a big issue. And I think it should be at the forefront of this thing because this is a low lying area.
I would assume that the engineers take into account that's a drain tile field and it's very. Close. We don't have anybody here to speak to.
I'm not, well, I guess I can't speak for that either, but in the original report, and they noted that it appears there's a culvert on the northeast corner. Just the verbiage of that indicates that they had no clue that there was a drain tile going to that culvert and draining north in that direction. And there's 2 drain tiles that go into that culvert. So.
Tom, I've been out there a lot. Ditch that runs along the south side of 200. Isn't very substantial.
That is really not a ditch. There is one drainage area where that drain tile does come out, which is dug out from it's east of Kepler's property. That's just a ditch. That's not a drainage going up to 5 or it just there's no thing there for the water to go that direction. It goes east from there.
Right.
Pretty much the only thing going into the ditch there on their property is coming out of the drain.
Yeah, but that's not a ditch along 205th on either side. That's not a drainage ditch whatsoever. That's just goes right down onto.
Yeah, I read that today.
I understand it. That could be more than down to 200.
Yeah, and then to the northeast, the homeowner on the corner, forget her name, Lori, she had her front yard. I don't know, they talked about it in the last meeting, that there's a culvert under the driveway going up to lot 7. That culvert is just a water flowage. That water doesn't go, it actually should be coming from Lori's yard going west and then flowing out somehow into that field and being drained out.
Is that
That yard flows.
right?
Yeah, that's under the very end of Benny's driveway. It's a culvert that the city recommended when we put the property in. So there's water in there, but that water just goes into Lori's yard and sits in pools, and it has for years. It's always a puddle there. That's her concern. And I mean, she has a legitimate concern too for this addition with no drainage, properly drained out of this field. that culvert right there, you can see it in the top right corner of the pond. That culvert, that just goes straight into the yard and stops, and if you see the contour lines of the topo map, you can tell the land goes up, and it goes, Isaac Schultz is the next neighbor down, that's high land, that's higher ground, so that water drains basically back west. So I'm just concerned about the culvert, I'm concerned about the drainage. I'm not an expert, so no, I don't, me talking to the engineer would be redundant. Other than me just explaining what I'm explaining to the council here right now. I do think that there are, so the land of 10,000 lakes, I think there are remedies and there has been an issue like this somewhere at some point in time. And I think it should be researched and looked at and a better understanding before we go to a final yes on this. Specifically for the water reasons.
Well, and my suggestion of having our city engineer contact you is because he could explain exactly what they're proposing in here in ways that I can't because it's not my area of expertise.
Okay, well, my question is to the city is what if that doesn't work and that does flood or that field floods? Who's gonna be liable after that? That's my concern, and that's why I'm addressing it at this meeting, so that it's documented that this is really been my concern now. So in 5 years, I'm not having an issue with flooded fields and problems of backed up water and whatever. That road washes out as the water just goes to underneath. I mean, that's an older road. It's not a very,
Mr. Chen. Question for Nash. I was wondering about the maintenance agreements on such plats. Have you seen them come through before? And where do they normally lean this maintenance and drainage?
So I
How
have,
do they divide it? How do they do this?
do they get what?
Do they divide it amongst those lots? How do they? Do
Yeah,
this?
that's normally how it's done, is it's divided amongst the lots. And most of the time, it's something where, so I've seen different versions, and I guess I haven't seen one that Attorney Ruby has done for Nowthen yet. So I'm just gonna kind of speak generally, but typically it's divided amongst the lots, the responsibility is, and typically the city will have a drainage and utility easement over all of this infrastructure, so that if it's not being done, the city can go in and take care of it.
So the city isn't overseeing the drainage at all. They're just waiting for the problem to arise and then they'll go and take care of it. Just,
Again, not necessarily,
okay.
because there's kind of two models that are out there. But again, I haven't been.
We haven't had these yet. Here.
You haven't had stormwater pumps?
We have retention needs.
But they're mostly up here in this one.
We have lots,
But not like an actual development. We haven't done a development.
there's people out here that put culverts in, foot too high, but
Thing that-
floods their neighbor's lawn.
We
So-
have downstate,
We have retention situations, but it's more on larger pieces of property. Not something small like this. And
typically the
Me.
wetlands that they drain to are much larger.
not something we're impacting so many people, so tight.
It's typically draining into a large wetland as opposed to a public common. And that, and again, somewhere in engineer made a calculation of that wetland and odor that could take the overflow of the retention. But again, I would ask a similar thing in other cities, not knowing here. What is the city's obligation in a situation like this? That you have seen, not that
Right.
you're saying that's ours.
Yeah, so again, there's kind of two models out there. So we'll start out with, before I even get to the two models, you're in MS4 city, so ultimately you do have to care about drainage everywhere and making sure those overflows are maintained, make sure there's not weeds growing into those structures that might be on those stormwater ponds, et cetera, et cetera. There's some good housekeeping things that you're supposed to be doing as part of your MS4 program. But that said, the kind of the two models out there for these stormwater pond maintenance agreements is that either, one, the, property owners maintain them. And if they don't maintain them, then the city will come in and maintain them and charge them back. The second model is the city's going to maintain them, not trust that they can maintain them, and just take that responsibility for doing that, and then still charge them for it. So kind of those are the two kind of models that are typically seen in those stormwater maintenance agreements. And I would assume that you have some for some of your newer subdivisions like Brian's Bend or some of those.
And again, Brian's been right. Doesn't have the same retention issue. I'm thinking of, states up on. West of Utah.
Well, you a lot.
Oh, that's older.
But there,
Huge, but
but there's a retention pond there.
yes,
The outlet did plug up. City had to go in and redo that. Over to the wetland that drains down the.
you're talking off of, Xenon.
No, we're talking about. And what's your civic? County 70 when it needs to. Harvest.
But their problem there is, they had a problem there, they dug up some of the green path. And so they still have a problem with it being blocked, drainage.
And the problem there is in wet year. The retention ponds start backing up towards the. Lowest elevation for the blockers. That's why it's been 10 years, 12 years anyway. And that did happen, started moving up to the house, the city went in and put the entrance and exits on the culvert to make sure that it didn't flood out. Once it gets past it, it goes into the series of wetlands that runs in your property. And it's flooded.
Wouldn't it make sense then to maintain drain tile? It's property somehow. But the water does have a release. I don't know how that would do that, but.
I didn't say they started building the.
That's what an engineer would be doing with that.
And I think that's why they go from drain tile to the holding pond. Basically just changes it, but it's still.
Well, they also have a lot more perfect surface.
Right, exactly.
The road, driveway, and house.
Yeah.
You get a lot more perfect surface. It's not only.
Which is why you gotta go to holding ponds.
No,
Yeah.
And the idea is, sediment sits in the retention pond, only settled water goes out into the lake. So the idea that, well, that's going to see the sediment is there, and probably less sediment is coming in the drain channel.
but if there's nothing connecting to the culvert, how does it release to the, is there a pond right there? Is the water overflow? That's still sediment that it will be.
That pond will overflow into that wetland.
But that wetland has no drain house, so that wetland overflow.
Well, the intention is that, except not anything it can and goes into the. That's the point of the wetland.
Or these stormwater funds.
Stormwater ponds hold a lot. Sediment settles out there and then the overflow goes into the wetland. And ideally filters down to the water table. That's excess. That's the theory.
Right, but that's not necessarily a ditch there, that's just a port. That's flat all the way along, and so that ditch, the south by the 25th is not a ditch. The water doesn't run along it, it just goes right to the field.
But water, the culvert under 205.
Yeah, but that culvert is fed by drain tile.
Yeah, and that's gonna stay there.
Right, the drain tile's not, so that's,
Yeah.
you have, your ditch is basically the distance of that culvert,
Yeah.
10 feet, well, 5 feet. That's your ditch where the water or go to. The rest of that shoulder is Well, actually, to the east of that, would act going into Lori's driveway under the culvert on the Benny's driveway. That floods her yard, so that would be the potential outlet for it, but. Otherwise, that ditch along that 205th, that's not a ditch. That's not a water holding. ditch.
So it was a ditch, it would drain. The water out of Chloe's yard.
Says that-
If that's proposed, but I don't see that proposed in this mapping as being a ditch all along the south side of 205th. That would just say that that's gonna be a walking trail.
But that could always be a solution in the future, right? If there is an issue.
It just says a dedicated space, the walk, the shift.
Right, but I mean, so that cuts into the property again, so that these are questions. Above my pay grade, but they're definitely questions that I think should be addressed prior to this thing being. Passed on through and then see what happens later, because now if you're talking about dredging that whole south side of 205th. Then you have to do that. But then down the road, if there is a proposed walking trail, because you're paying for that. Then you have to come in farther on that property as an easement to people that already bought that property.
So what I see is there's an existing, grade step hole there at 31 and one up there at 30. And then there's by the road, there's a 33 and a 34 rock. And it looks to me like the future grade or the finished final grade, FG, looks like they're actually pulling grade away from that. Like they are gonna make it's a steeper flow. Does that make sense to you? You see it?
No,
Okay. That's okay, that's cool. So right here, we've got 931, and it's actually on a 932. So it looks to me like they are gonna do some. They're bringing up the grade to actually encourage the flow rapid.
Now, has there been any thought of how much hard band is underneath it? You know, you get a lot of pressure. Right, and then we'll get a bunch of rain, it'll sit on top of it. It won't go through there till it gets soaked up.
that field, there's no hard pan that absorbs in and it's just
That's
the
the
place.
At that level, there's probably some hard band. Got it, and it can vary as much as 4 feet. And
But it's a soggy wet, even with the drain tile, and that's still when it's west. That feels wet. The soil is, it's not.
You know, we buy this one. You ever got this rain pile? And they're starting to move, and they're putting around, I think it's they're sliding everywhere, it's kind of an unimaginable.
Well, I mean, that's up to the excavators and what, I don't, they deal with that stuff when they do their work, I'm just concerned about drainage. Not really concerned of how they're gonna maneuver there, yeah, it is.
And that's where how they're bringing up the grade, they feel like they're bringing in the tree.
I would.
So the soil owners are gonna have to say what needs to be brought in, and or what needs to be excavated to make it
Sure.
sustain a road.
Oh, yeah, for sure, the road.
Yeah, so I don't know how they're planning to do all that. That's not my job, but I'm sure that that's something.
Well, that's part of the,
Yeah.
that's part of what we're here for tonight, right? Is to, why, how this is gonna be developed, how they're gonna put it, that's
Agreed.
what somebody gets paid to do, the engineer, but my point tonight. Is the engineer said the water flow would go east and west, and naturally that's not gonna occur, so if they're forcing it that way and building up grade. The flow to the west, if it does go through the culvert grade, I don't believe that that's. But there is no drain ditch along County Road 5, and there's no drain ditch along
On 250.
Ben's driveway. So that would be on the east, so.
So that's fine with the existing grade. We're down.
it's a little bit higher.
Yeah, a little bit.
Has to go in just a few feet, it drops off immensely.
Well, that's a drop along that side of the road, but that's,
And then they got the mound back
You have a dipper.
course. and that's all, that's gotta be looked at too, we don't wanna flood that.
yeah, that whole property yard would be.
I
Where is the culvert on County Road 5?
don't see it either.
Yeah, I don't see that.
I mean, if you say there's one there, I've never seen one going across
I
by,
don't see one
so.
either.
There is one north on, coming up from my property, north of, 205th, there's a culvert across it, but
I think it's right here. See where there's a 12
But
inch.
that's going north and
that's
south.
the north south of that direction.
Yeah, that's north south.
Yeah.
That's different. That's a field approach.
Unless they're wanting that water to go north under 205th.
Go there.
There it is.
Wait.
Yeah, that's,
So the question is, look a little further.
that's off the plat too.
Looks like, yeah, looks like there's almost like a holding space, that space right there. It looks like, yeah. Is that
Oh, yeah,
supposed
that
to be-
is, that's marked right here.
It's supposed to be a
It's basin
water
G.
basin G, yes.
Yeah.
But there's no culvert for it to go in. And the water lines around it are only one.
When that goes on the other side of five. But that's go through there, where does it go from there?
I believe it goes up to a series of creeks over to Bear Lake, which is straight west and a little bit north. That's the only place I can think of that.
So there's no.
Because there is a drainage
Down
that comes
It's
north
on the-
on
it's
my
on a
property
different
that goes
property.
across
Yeah, but it,
and cuts over and I don't barely, there's a mark. and then
Making
there's
flow
Bear
from
Lake to
the-
the-
Yeah, I
Or
know,
receiving
this time
flow,
because
depending
this
on-
Bear Lake used to drain south,
But that,
and then Krieger made it go north.
I'm not sure where that.
Two way.
Well,
Bear
yeah.
Lake's the only other big water
Oh,
basin.
Yeah, no, I said he
Of course, that's all.
But he,
Oh, I know.
so,
Of course, it's just.
and there's no documentation on it, you can't even find anything.
I know.
But that hard pan is really weird stuff, when you get that water sitting on, you'll sit there for days on end. And then after a while, you go out and it's all wrong. And and what it reminds you of is when they drill a well. I don't know what they call it, stuff, real sticky stuff. And you put that around your well, that's what that hard pan is. Real sticky, it gets on your fingers and you can't get it off. It's a gray looking.
Love
Yeah,
the mass.
And then I have another concern. We're gonna guess that. The state law on pollution control with dust. And I think I made that, I brought that at the last meeting, I left a copy, here that night. And so if the road is, it's not gonna be tarred, that road is heavily traveled. It will be heavily traveled with the additional houses there, and according to Minnesota state law. The PCA, any development or any addition to what is already there. The dust and sediment in the air has to be maintained to its original or close to original state. So that means by adding cars and adding traffic on that road, even though it's 1,000 feet from County Road 5, that's a lot of dust. This year, it hasn't been bad, it has been, they did the treated it initially, but now with the wet weather, the dust has been kind of at a standstill, but in the years beyond, prior to this, that road is a dust storm. And that is a speedway from the break at Davy Buskell's house, which is the next property to the east of my property, up to County Road 5 for kids or whoever that wants to gun it and take off, or either going toward 5, or coming off of 5.
I think we'll start that at my driveway, so at the top of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a very dusty road. That dust in the summer does travel north most of the time, and that my property and my animals, my livestock and my pastures are all affected by the overflow of the dust coming off of that. So there's health concerns for human, livestock, and then plant health as well. That's a big concern of mine. If the city the city lawyer can't say that they have to put tar down for that stretch because of the development, not because the road needs tar. Then there should be some other solution to address that so that the pollution and the air dust remains as little as possible with the additional traffic. And again, I don't know if the solution of that, I have one solution, to put a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit on that road to a first half mile. So that cars and trucks coming off of 5 going down 205th, you have a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit.
You can't do that.
It's a city road.
Don't make any difference.
Well,
The statute says we can do that if their driveways are a certain distance apart. Doesn't be limited by on it, you know. Literally measure it off. There's always going to be a space. If there's nothing in the density, the whole line streets.
well, that was just a thought that I had to reduce the speed of the traffic, reduce it. That's otherwise I do believe it's, again, that's an issue with the city of Nowthen to look into because there's a state statute on it, so.
That's why. Like, those are not.
Well, you know,
So,
it is, it's a country road
Yep.
and it's, if it says washboard, but obviously if there's 5 more houses going in there and more traffic for that. The other, Benny's old house. To increase traffic on that road, it's again, and it's a minimal maintained road, I mean, it's just. So it's a country road, so that's an issue that I have, and I'm bringing it up to the attention of the planning and zoning. So that you're aware that that concern is being taken, and that there is
stormwater.
stating that there is state statute that governs that, does. So.
Well, we thank you for your time for bringing these things to our attention, and we know that our engineer still has to do some work on this. And so maybe if you'd like to meet with the engineer too, to discuss some of this stuff with him.
Again, I mean, I don't know what the engineer should be educated to the point of knowing how this water flows. My 2 cents is saying, this is what's going on now, this is what's happened in the past, this is where the water sits, etc. I can't technically tell you how to do this. I can point out the issues that could arise from it and my point of view of what's happened, and that's as far as I can go right now. And down the road, if there is an issue, I did make my point to the city planning and zoning about it, and then we'll have to see what happens. That's the only thing I can say.
Okay, thank you then. And what I hear here, our engineer's got a lot of work to do on this yet.
He has some things that he's still waiting on.
He's
Yeah.
doing it. Okay. And are there any more questions the planning and zoning answer? I know if they dig up the tile, it's gonna have effect on the drainage. Because I know over there on Hunter Meadows, I guess, next to me over there, they dug up some of the tiles, so some of the drainage is not there, it used to be draining across. Highway 70 underneath there is not draining like it should now.
At a minimum, do we know if the engineer is aware that there is drain tile there now?
I think the engineers always assume that there's drain tile anywhere
Yeah.
in places like this. We
So that's
frequently have
neat.
no idea where it's at.
Oh. So I mean, yeah, I mean, so they are taking that into account that there's existing drain tile.
But I wonder if they know how many total is in there.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We usually have no idea.
You're guessing at what to do.
Mr. Chair. So yeah, it sounds like the engineers are making, they're running their calculations, they're coming up with the best plan that they can. But it's what happens if things go wrong. We don't have that agreement. So.
Right.
So we need to open the question.
Who's working on that agreement? The engineer?
The city attorney will do the stormwater maintenance agreement.
Okay. And that's going to be very critical the way that's looked.
They're yes and no, they're pretty boilerplate as well.
Have any more
Mr. Chair?
questions? Yes, go ahead.
Planner, yeah, so on that, engineer report. Stormwater management plan changes, what is that? That, basically what we've seen. On here,
It's that, but it's also a whole separate document that contains all of their model calculations. It usually ends up being, the state has a ton of different information in it. They have sent versions back and forth. But what we don't have right now is one that's actually signed by the engineer, Bogart Peterson.
Bogart Peterson will be submitting it. Hawkinson will be reviewing it.
Right, the
And-
final one, yep.
And that may or may not have anything to do with the stormwater maintenance agreement.
No, that, it'll get referenced, I'm sure, in the stormwater maintenance agreement, but it's not, so what an engineer at the end of when they're done with their plans, they have to put their seal on. And the same with the plans that we have submitted here. There's always a block for them to sign plans and so we're always looking for that final sign version.
And do you have any idea if the city were to excavate that ditch to a typical slopage? Let's see. Again. Would that affect their plan?
I anticipate it would have impacted, I don't know how. And you also may not have drainage and utility easement to be able to do that at the moment, so that would be a question for your city engineer.
That I would think we want to have utility easement along south, particularly south end to it. So we have proper drainage on that road that water retention on either side of the road would affect. Certainly affect their operations. It's not a proper slope there. To drain that to a terminal location. This is.
Yes, Commissioner. There are 33 volt. Line for load and utilities.
There is, but depending on your topography, that may not.
Why is it on?
I'm talking the new road?
No, 200.
Oh, that varies.
Right there at the bottom.
So here's the plat. As part of this, they're formally dedicating from the center line out the 33 feet, so they're half of 250,000.
24 feet in the extra ditch. And 12 feet to the road. And the parking trail would be 20 feet beyond that.
Well, it'll be, yeah, 20 feet beyond that. And then the reality is if that is ever constructed, they'll have to do engineering plans at that time to actually figure out how to make all those things work together, and sometimes they have to do curb and gutter, but, type stuff.
Are there any more questions? It's been recommended to us that we accept this plan of plan along with I think there's about it's quite a few recommendations we've 23 recommendations and we have to do this as well.
I don't think we have to read those. A lot of them are kind of standard conditions, and they relate back then to the memo as well, so it's incorporating all things comments in particular by reference.
So,
And again, our intention is not to put it on the city council agenda until we can resolve those items that are in Shane's memo.
if we continue with this meeting, and it should be.
That's your call. If you'd like to see it, so you can see that stormwater needs to get resolved along with some of the others we can. Otherwise, like I said, we'll just hold it back for council.
It's gonna take another month anyway,
He's trying to get it all done. Mr. Peterson is trying to get it all done to his desire to be on the September council meeting. I don't know if they'll make any difference.
we have, a climate recommendation with that is with 23 different items here, recommendations and some things that still has to be done. Will be long. It's, that's the thing we should do or not?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I did review, all of the recommendations, and it looks like everything that we've been discussing has been, what do we call that? Noted and put in as part of this agreement. They reference it back to the memos and all that stuff was tied in. You can see that?
Correct, it's number 3.
Thank you. I'm looking at it, trying to figure out. There, yes. So all these memos that we just discussed, we have been going through, all tied into this findings. And I think I mean, they're gonna figure it out. They have to do the,
Yeah,
they have to do the work, I can't.
there's a lot of work to be done, even though it may hold back another month or so, but,
What they're looking for is the approval to go forward.
yeah,
And get all this finalized, because dumping out money on a preliminary idea is not what they want. They want it final. A-OK, and then they're gonna find. See change or whatever, you know what I mean?
okay. We could have a motion here, if somebody like to make a motion to accept these, 23, not only 23 recommendations given to us there.
Mr. Chair, so we're clear, we're voting whether or not we just sort of push this to the city council, who all of these items are still gonna have to get resolved.
Yes,
We just don't know what, we don't have all the information. We're just,
Right,
okay,
But basically saying there has to be an agreement
right, yeah. These
They'll
have to be
before
resolved.
the council approves it. Okay, basically with the
Okay,
plat and these conditions.
okay. I'll make the motion.
Commission. This one made a motion to accept this, the recommendations.
Make a second.
Thank you, Mr. Pearl, seconded, and I'll call for the vote, all in favor, say aye. Motion carried, I think. There's nothing else we want to
no,
cover in the future. Okay, we'll accept the motion to adjourn. Commission, Pickle, and Morgan, Commissioner Jorgensen, second, all in favor, say aye.